Hello and welcome to another Pauper video. I'm Kais. Today we are talking about the Magic Online metagame. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the Magic Online leagues, and then we'll check out what happened in the challenges over the weekend. This is from the week of November 10 through 16, and it's going to include a bunch of looks at one-offs and spicy changes to deck lists, so make sure you stick around for that as well. Before we get into it, check out cardmarket.com, the largest seller of Magic the Gathering cards. If you're in Europe and you want to pick up some of these cards, all of these decks are going to be linked day by day on the Goldfish, so you can scroll through those if you want. We also have sideboard guides at patreon.com/KellyKais and early access to videos on the YouTube membership for that option. So what happened this week? Well, first of all, we had a mini trophy league on the 12th to the 14th. It was in the afternoon on the 12th and ended on the 14th, but all of those trophies did not get posted anywhere. So we don't actually know what happened on those days, and as a result, we only have 87 trophies for the week. We are missing multiple days. So overall, Mono Red was on top. They had 20% of the trophies with 18. Then Affinity was just below that. Black Green Glee at 6. Madness Burn at 6. There was a couple pilots that had multiples with Madness Burn, so maybe they're just running hot or doing well with that. Then we have Mono Blue Fae, Turbo Fog, Gruul Ramp, Jund Glee. Multiple Gardens pilots trophied. We had Gardens and Jund Gardens. So if you take a combined look at it, we have Mono Red at 20%, Affinity at 12%, Glee at 10%, then Madness Burn here, and then Gardens variants. And then off on down from there. So, not too much has changed in the metagame specifically, but it'll be pretty cool to check out some silly lists and some cool stuff that happened. So one of the things I wanted to check out here was this red-green tokens by Malaraza. This is basically the black-green food deck, but instead of playing black, they're playing Writhing Chrysalis in the main deck. They've got Troublemaker Oof as well, which makes sense because there's a lot of tokens to sack. And then Hooting Mandrills to close. Many Partings, Cash Grab, Malevolent Rumble, and then Ram Through. So basically the same deck. And it makes sense because the Deadly Disputes weren't very effective there. That was a pretty sweet deck though. So I know people were excited and want to try Writhing Chrysalis in it. The next deck I wanted to look at was the White-Green Gates. But this person is playing Duskshell Crawler for some reason. I guess because it works with Recommission. So Duskshell Crawler puts +1/+1 counter on a creature, and then every creature you have that has a +1/+1 counter on it gets trample. So it basically gives your Writhing Chrysalis trample that they have splash for in a Naya shell for this. Main deck Breath Weapon, and they've got Evolution Witness to grind. I know people were excited about Naya Gates, and I covered that a while ago, so maybe this is a sweet version to check out if you're interested. They also have Core Skyfisher plus Abundant Growth, which I absolutely love. It's a 1 white-green draw card, 2/3 flyer. Awesome. The next cool deck is a red-black Affinity from Yahakara. But essentially this is Affinity, and they're not playing the Burn Shell. They're just playing Mirror Enforcer, Fireweaver, or Refurbished Familiar, and Fireweaver. And then Galvanic Blast. So they've decided not to play the 4 Lightning Bolt like the other player did, but just straight up mean deck wins Affinity stuff. They are splashing white for Coalition Honor Guard in the sideboard for Glee, as well as Snuff Out, which is interesting. 3 Swamps in the deck, and they have Navigator's Compass in order to make Snuff Out work. That's pretty silly. So they're going specifically pretty hard on trying to make Snuff Out work post board for Glee. We have a Gruul Ramp featuring a brand new card, Bushwhack. Says search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle, or target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. And one of the players on the Familiars Discord called this the Green Lorien Revealed. Modal cards are very, very good. It otherwise didn't change the deck, but it's cool to see that being an option for people. We had a Boros Synth by Jace MTG show up. Boros Synth is a fan favorite, popping up now and then, but it doesn't do too much. We have 7 Thraben Inspector effects, and then 4 Blast, 4 Bold, Cast into the Fire main deck, Prismatic Strands main deck, And then they've got Candy Trail and Lembas for value and life gain with the relics and the Dust to Dust. It's a pretty classic deck. They do have Clarkland Shaman in the main deck though, but no way to recur creatures, it looks like. We have a Turbo Fog by RG something Polish, I can't pronounce, but they're playing Thorn of the Black Rose in the main deck, and then they've got 2 Mesmeric Fiends. So they do have the Mesmeric Fiend plus Deadly Dispute combo, where your Mesmeric Fiend enters the battlefield, and then you Deadly Dispute it before the first trigger resolves, exiling a creature forever. They've got Toxin Analysis to combine with the Crypt Rats, and then mostly a Fog package from the black-green version. And this person is specifically playing Trespasser's Curse, which is whenever... it's not showing up. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, they lose a life and you gain a life. So that is something that you can main deck to try to hate on the Glee decks. Speaking of Glee, here's a Jund Broodscale combo by Evil Dealer, or Evil Drake, actually. And what I thought was interesting here is they're playing this card, Phyrexian Vivisector. Other players have been playing Snarling Gorehound, which is a similar effect, but it's Surveil. This one says whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1. They're pairing it with 4 Ghast and 2 Freebooter for sacrificable things that make treasures. And they only have 2 Mesmeric Fiend and 2 Safekeeping as their protection because they're splashing 4 Writhing Chrysalis. This is something I also tried to do with Splash Chrysalis. It can be pretty tough to make work. And then they just have 2 Makeshift Munitions as their win conditions. So they have Troublemaker Oof in the sideboard to try to beat the opposing Trespasser's Curses, which makes sense. We saw a mono white aggro, and typically this doesn't see a lot of new cards, but I did want to point out that they're playing 3 Martyr Soul in the main deck. This is Convoke, and it says when it enters the battlefield, if you have no tapped lands, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So you could go Thraben Inspector turn 1, turn 2 Thraben Martyr Soul, and have a 5/4 on turn 2, which would be pretty sick. I don't know how often that happens, but it's cool to see a card like that show up. And then we have one of Sylvok Lifestaff for main deck ways to gain life. And they only have 8 1-drops, so I guess they're not trying to get that Martyr Soul out too early. Here's a Grixis Affinity by Nitrox, and I just covered a version of Grixis Affinity playing Spellstutter Sprite and Sneaky Snacker. This person went a little bit lighter on the package so that they could fit in 4 Mere Enforcer. They have a Hunter's Blowgun in the main deck. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and Death Touch as long as it's your turn. So they have 2 Toxin plus this Blowgun in order to make their 3 of Clarkland Shamans more effective and win the game for them more often. Then the last deck I want to check out is, it's Burn. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but this comes originally, I believe, is a list that Alexander Weber, one of the PFP members, had created and did decently or very well in a Pauper challenge. You can see that it's playing 0 Kuldotha Rebirth. It is a Pinger-based deck with 4 Kessig Flamebreather main. Then they have Voldaren Epicure, Tomb Raider, and Percussionist. Only 16 creatures, and then leaning heavier on burn spells. Chain Lightning, Galvanic Blast, Lightning Bolt. Looks like they actually do have 1 Kuldotha Rebirth, and then 1 Improvised Club with 4 Ren's Resolve. So this one can grind a little bit harder and potentially be better in the mirror when your opponent has a lot more End the Festivities. It's interesting that they fit 1 Kuldotha Rebirth in here. Try to keep your opponent guessing, I guess. So that is the leagues, and let's check out the Pauper Challenge. So this is Kerblinksi's Pauper Challenge recap. I need to open this in a new window so that we can see it a little bit clearer. There we go. So Grixis Affinity on top with 12.5%, then Kuldotha below it with 11.3%. Affinity crushing over the weekend with 59% non-mirror win rate, whereas Kuldotha about 53.4. Jund Broodscale not doing very well. Golgari Broodscale not doing very well. They have Mono Blue Terror at 60% win rate with 6.2% to the metagame. So we basically can see that Affinity and Kuldotha are on top. Will continue to be the most played, most successful decks. And then we have the rest of the format kind of below it. Obviously, we still have Affinity, Kuldotha, Broodscale, and Terror, and Gruul. But then the rest of the format's kind of sparse and spread out. Looks like the best performing deck was two pilots of Demir Fey, or the Barf Demir control, going 10-3 total for a 76.9% win rate. That is very, very solid. So hopefully you like this. Let me know if I rambled or hit things, and then if there's anything specifically you wanted to talk about, hit me up in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.